All right. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, the ROC is like a the old government of China that rules from Taiwan, which is not supposed to be internationally recognized without pissing mainland China off, but somehow they've made a workaround, you know, where they do recognize that Taiwan is a separate government that's supposed to control China, but China is controlled by mainland, the Communist Party, the CCP, since like 1940 or whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah. So why haven't they taken over since then? I think it's because of international support for the ROC.
Well, it's international support, isn't that UN backed?
Yeah, well, I think the UN recognizes both of them. Does the UN recognize Taiwan?
Um, let's see.
Oh, that's like the first question that pops up too.
The political status of Taiwan is contentious. The ROC, no, by the way, this is Wikipedia. I just
No.
Wikipedia Taiwan.
Yeah.
Uh, and towards the last paragraph of the main paragraph, the political status of Taiwan is contentious. The ROC no longer represents China as a member of the United Nations after UN members voted in 1971 to recognize the PRC instead. The ROC maintained its claim of being the sole legitimate representative of China in its territory until 1991, when it ceased to regard the CCP as a rebellious group and recognized its jurisdiction over mainland China.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like there's only
Taiwan,
13 other countries that recognize Taiwan.
yeah, with 12 out of 193. Um, so they maintain diplomatic relations with 12 out of 193. Uh, 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 um, I mean, like for me, it's hard for me to talk about Taiwan with no knowledge other than the fact that it was, you know, during the Chinese Japanese War, Japan, you know, for lack of better words, beat China,
Mm-hmm.
and they kind of took over the island as a strategic interest. And since then, it's kind of broken apart from mainland China as far as them claiming, you know, that they're on the right side of the government of China. You know, I don't really see that as much as Taiwan wanting to be independent from mainland China,
But they
and
don't.
that's kind of
Yeah,
like where we are
they
now.
they don't want to be independent. They are the old government of China that's just ruling from Taiwan, um, to protect themselves from the rebellious government of the CCP or the PRC, whatever you want to,
Hmm.
People's Republic of China. Yeah.
Hmm.
But as to like why they haven't reclaimed China is because they don't have the manpower, and China doesn't have the manpower to overwhelm Taiwan because of international support.
I mean, they definitely have the manpower. It's just whether or not they have the military might versus U.S. backing. It's not even not like China's not worried about France or England as much as they are worried about the United States
I
backing
I
Taiwan.
I would disagree that they don't have the manpower to occupy Taiwan because the island itself it's been made into a fortress island with international backing. So it's like can they can they first strike it and overrun some of the defenses? Yes, but can they hold Taiwan is a totally different story.
Yeah, I disagree with that. Uh, I feel like if China were to launch an offensive into Taiwan, that in itself is probably the biggest holdback of China launching uh, an offensive attack on Taiwan. I don't think that, like, once again, I don't know anything, but
Yeah.
I don't think that China is reserved in attacking Taiwan because of the repercussions. I feel like China is reserved in attacking Taiwan because that's just gonna, it's gonna be, you know, like we're meeting on the hill. We're gonna be going toe to toe. You have to figure how many. If you look at the geography surrounding China, whether it's Vietnam or the Philippines or you know the China Strait, like we have battleships, we have the means to uh, know when they're coming and to thwart their offensive attack.
Yeah. So
At least,
I mean,
at least,
so does Taiwan.
well, yeah, well, Taiwan because we're supplying them with weapons and defense, but
No, they have
it.
they have they've built up. They've had the last 60 years to build up their own armaments, and like I would say that Taiwan is fully capable of defending itself because you say the geography of China, you have to look at the geography of Taiwan as well. I mean, it's like a mountain island that like all of their geography favors the defensive position. So even if China were to attack, I mean, it's almost impossible for them to mount like a serious assault on the island.
So if you look at a map right now, right?
Yeah,
I'm just on Google Maps,
yeah. Look at the
right?
topographical map of
Not even topographical. Just look at a map of land and oceans. The Philippine Sea, the South China Sea, East China Sea, whatever. To think that the CCP can't overtake this tiny little island that's right off their coast that they really want to take. Taiwan is a major strategic interest because of the semiconductors, right? Like that's pretty much why we care about Taiwan, other than the fact that just China wants to shut them up. The fact that China can't just breeze into Taiwan, I mean, like, once again, look at it from like, you know, Guadang, Hong Kong, which Hong Kong they just took over, no problem, you know. Um,
well,
but
I think you're not taking into account the scale of these things, right? I don't know.
oh,
Like
like
Taiwan's a very
on a
big
map,
place.
zoomed out, yeah, it's a tiny island. I'm not saying
No,
it's
it's
easy.
not a tiny island. It's a big place.
Yeah, I'm not.
When you look at it on a map, I mean, it looks tiny, but it's definitely not. Especially like to think that you could just breeze in there and take everything is like I think it's almost suicide going in there.
Okay, right now, if we were to sit there and say 100 years ago, if China had, you know, half of the military force and the military might they had for 100 years ago, for them to go into Taiwan, I would think that that wouldn't be a hard task. But now the reason it's difficult is because United States has strategic interests surrounding Taiwan. We're in the Philippines, we're in South Korea, we're in Japan. All those surrounding countries that, you know, they're not favorable to China. If if I would if I was a country with a navy half the size of the United States, I'd say no problem. We could easily take Taiwan, and by the time we get there, you know, if you look at the nautical miles from mainland China to Taiwan, it's not even close to nautical miles from the Philippines or Japan or South Korea. So why wouldn't China now, being the military might they are, just take over Taiwan.
I think you're overestimating their military might. Like, why would they put all of their resources into taking Taiwan when, like, it's just like Russia with Ukraine right now,
But wait,
right?
hold on. Not to cut you off. What what would China be putting their military might into if not their navy for Taiwan that's right on their border?
Okay,
Like,
let's just imagine.
what are they what are they investing in militarily other than like the Belt Road Initiative in Africa? Like, what are they? They're fighting with India. They're not they're not friends with Mongolia. Okay, they're allies with Russia. So if they're allies with Russia, wouldn't they be more? Uh, if you were to think of their military, wouldn't they be more uh, adamant about going over the mountains into Mongolia? If we're talking about like uh, territorial disputes, or if you're looking at like terrain, Mongolia is like very difficult to conquer, right? Because of the mountains and everything else.
But
But
yeah, that's what I'm
but
saying about
but wouldn't Taiwan be so much easier than
no. I'm
conquering
saying
Mongolia?
yeah, geographically, you have to look at the makeup of Taiwan. It's 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 worse than Mongolia. I mean, it's a mountain island that has like plenty of countermeasures for like even if you launch a bunch of ships at Taiwan, it has missiles, it has air it has its own air force. It has international support. I mean, it's like a it's a fortress island.
Yeah,
So like
that's what I'm saying. Like right now, it has international support. But if I'm looking at the terrain view of Taiwan,
yeah.
all the mountains are on the east. No,
Yeah, but you have to think about if you're
so
gonna
like
conquer
if all the mountains are on the east and China is attacking from the west, why would the terrain be an issue with them just getting boots on the ground?
because you're assuming that they don't have a plan of defense. You know, I would say
That
that
Taiwan does have a plan of defense?
yeah, that the like if you have 60 years to plan a defense from your aggressive neighbor and you're a mountain island, it's just like us going into Vietnam. You know, we got slaughtered in Vietnam because they knew the land, they knew how to maneuver in that area, they knew all of our weak points, and it was like a fucking 15-year struggle for us to, you know, claim somewhat of a victory in their area, you know?
If I'm looking at a terrain view map right now
Yeah.
on Google Maps, it's all I'm using. The east coast of Taiwan is very mountainous, right?
Mhm.
A lot of like above sea level, like hard to defend or hard to attack from China, right?
Mhm.
But if you look on the eastern seaboard of China, it seems like they have like a pretty decent amount of mountainous areas as well. Like it's not just like flat land.
I mean, you would be assuming that Taiwan would be invading China?
No, I'm assuming that China would be familiar with that kind of warfare. Whereas, like, when we went to Afghanistan and it's all tunnels and desert, it's totally unfamiliar for what we're used to dealing with. Right? Like, when we're like fighting with Germany, for instance, Germany's like pretty similar to like United States as far as like geographic terrain. Whereas like China and Taiwan, not that much different. So why do you think that China would have such a hard time uh 30 years ago of invading as soon as Taiwan started talking with the United States after World War II and trying to like um you know make like have a break off state. This is like 40 years ago and CCP is like getting stronger and stronger. Why do you think it was the terrain that China didn't say no, fuck you. You're ours. You're not a breakaway state. You're not a Republic of China. You don't own us. We're the CCP. We have the population, we have, you know, the majority of people wanting something. I feel like to me, it's almost like Hawaii is like, hey, we're communist. It's just like, no, you're American, and they're like, well, fuck you. I feel like if that was the case, United States would just go and invade Hawaii, and Hawaii's not close to the United States. So why wouldn't China give the same treatment to Taiwan?
It's a
Like
good.
that's
Well,
kind of like my
it's a
question.
good question of why they haven't yet, right?
Yeah, but now it's like too late. Now it's like now if you were to ask why didn't China invade Taiwan last year, it's like, well, now there's a lot of reasons. Now it's not geography. Now it's they have the backing of a lot of superpowers.
So you're saying without international backing, they would be just fresh meat for China?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course.
I mean, I disagree. I feel like if you have that long of a time to plan your defenses out, it's just like us invading Japan. You'd think that we would crush Japan no matter what, but we had to have two
Yeah, but
nuclear
we did.
bombs.
We did crush Japan.
If it wasn't for the nuclear bombs, we wouldn't have crushed them.
If it wasn't for the nuclear bombs, we wouldn't have crushed them.
Yeah?
I'm pretty sure that we would have had no problem in World War II to crush Japan without the nuclear bombs.
No, I mean, we were pretty close to a stalemate in Japan. Without the nuclear bombs, they were not gonna let go. They were not gonna accept defeat at like no matter what the cost until the nuclear bombs came around. That's why we hit them. That's why we had to hit them with two nuclear bombs. You'd think one would be enough to for a country to be like, "Oh, hey, this is too much for us." Even with like the relentless firestorming campaigns, even with the invasion of Iwo Jima, I mean, they were.
Yeah, but we conquered Iwo Jima. We won that.
Yeah, but what we found on Iwo Jima was like they didn't have that much time to prepare, and they transformed that Iwo Jima into a fucking fortress island also. You know, they were finding like if it was properly manned, it definitely would have held off the attack,
But
right? Let's look
to
at
be
Iwo
fair,
Jima.
China wasn't our enemy at that point. China was more of an ally at that point
Oh wait,
because
sorry,
we
Iwo Jima was the naval battle. Sorry,
yeah.
that's not
Well,
the island
no,
I'm thinking
it
about.
wasn't. It wasn't a
Oh
naval
no,
battle.
it
No,
was an island.
we were like boots on the ground in Iwo Jima, yeah,
Yeah.
and same with Okinawa. But like, uh, the thing is, like, we were allies with China, to some extent. I want to say allies. They weren't like part of the allies during World War II, but Japan and China weren't very friendly during that time. And if we're going to war against Japan, there's a pretty strong chance we could have, you know, had China back us, and we could have had strategic interest there, had it not been for the nukes or the atom bombs. But
I
like
think China really
the
had a lot left after their war with
what did you,
Japan.
if it wasn't for the atom bombs, what do you think would have happened?
Probably a continued firestorming campaign until, like, I mean, until it
Where?
all over Japan. That's what we were doing at the time.
No, but what was the firestorming campaign in the United States other than Pearl Harbor?
No, I'm saying we were firestorming Japan.
Right, but like you're saying that you know
It
we're going toe to toe with Japan and had an opera of the atom bombs, then you
yeah,
know
that we there would be no way we can conquer Japan. Yeah.
I feel like our Navy and our Air Force during World War II was the best in the world. That's what made us a superpower.
No, they had superior aircraft with the Japanese Zero planes, and also in that 100 years, Japan went from being like a samurai sword wielding country into like a naval superpower that defeated Russia. You know, with the
Japan defeated Russia,
oh, they beat the shit out of Russia.
but they defeated Russia.
Yeah, like single-handedly. I think they forced Russia to bring their fleet all the way around. They basically grouped Russia's fleet up, and with just a few ships, they annihilated the Russian fleet. That was like one of the biggest naval losses of the 21st century. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's actually what set
I
Russia
have to look
back
it up
from.
because I don't think that's right.
I
I
mean,
just
look it up. That's
yeah, I am.
look up yeah, Japanese wins against Russia. They completely embarrassed the Russian Navy. And not to mention with like not that many ships either.
Okay, what year was this?
1920, 1930. That was the
Because I'm seeing the Russo-Japanese War.
yeah.
That was in 1904 to 1905. That was 1 year. Um. Okay, Soviet area.
Oh, Battle of
U.S. U.S. had
Tsushima. Oh, okay. I was wrong. I was completely wrong on the date. 1905.
yeah, but that war lasted for 1 year.
Yeah, but they sunk two
But that,
thirds
that
of
was
the
but
they sunk two thirds
but
of the
hold
Russian
on,
Navy.
hold on. What year was that?
Look up the Battle of Tsushima.
Okay, but that was 1905. We're talking about 40 years later.
How long do you think it takes to make it? Like, if you lose two thirds of your navy, how long do you think it takes to build it back up? Especially with the government change in Russia at the time, it takes a long time to rebuild your navy, especially when you don't have the like
Okay, listen. I'm gonna give you the fact that Russia was super weak during World War II.
they
Are you saying that Japan basically was the superpower controlling Russia's
they
decisions? Is that what you're saying?
no, I'm saying that they were a force to be reckoned with. So like
What
for
like what
Japan
is
to take over,
where does Russia fall into the Japanese conversation during World War II?
it's a point that Japan at the time was a lot stronger than you make it out to be.
No, no, no. I know that Japan was very strong.
Yeah,
My point was that our military might in World War II, our Navy and our Air Force, maybe it's just me being like, you know, American and I listen to all the propaganda, but I'm pretty sure that if we went toe to toe with Japan, if it was United States versus Japan, no outside powers, we would still demolish Japan without the use of atomic bombs. That's my point. That's like what I'm trying to get at.
yeah. If you're thinking that American power wasn't split up all through Germany and everywhere else around the world, yeah. I
No, no,
mean,
no,
I
no.
could
Like just across the Pacific, Japan and United States, one on one, no outside powers, no outside allies or military bases or anything else. Would Japan have any strength against the United States
yeah,
had it not been for the atomic bombs?
yes.
That like to me, I feel like we would easily wipe away Japan. I wonder what their fleet of battleships and their planes were. Like you could argue like, you know, uh like their planes at the time were like, superior than ours, but how many are we talking about? Like is it one to one?
Well, you got
Is
to
it
think
3 to 1?
you got to think Japan at the time, right? Conquered all of Korea, almost all of China, and made it across the Pacific Ocean to attack United States. So I mean, like that level of technology for a country that small that just industrialized is like I don't think
So,
you could fathom the
I,
power that they actually wielded back then.
I don't know if I missed something. I just want to clarify. You're
Yeah,
saying during World War II, leading up to World War II,
yeah,
Japan was such a military force to be reckoned with. They conquered South Korea, they conquered China,
yeah. Oh yeah,
and that
the yeah. Look up
and,
the rape of Nanking. I mean,
oh,
that's
I
like
listen.
the
I'm totally familiar with it. That's why I said before that China was very weak. That's why they'd be very adamant
it
to be
wasn't
allies with the United
it
States.
wasn't that they were weak. It was that Japan was on another level. I mean, they
No,
were.
China was very weak during that time because their economy was dog shit. Their economy was like in the shitter. The China as we know it only started in like I don't know, like I could be totally wrong. I could be totally wrong. Don't believe anything I'm saying. But to me, I feel like the China we know now started in the 80s. Everything prior to that, from like the 1800s, the mid 1800s to the 1980s, China was like you roll over them. They were terrible. Their economy was in the shit. Their you know economy was in shit. Their military was shit. Their trades were shit. So for Japan to conquer China at that time, it's like, yeah, okay, it's not the craziest thing. South Korea, I couldn't tell you anything about. I have no idea how good South Korea was in the 1900s.
Mhm.
But in the 1900s, other than the Great Depression, like once we hit that industrial age in the 30s, man, we were like fucking booming. And I don't think that's because of England or Australia or, you know, Europe as a whole. I feel like this is because we were building some crazy shit to deal with foreign powers going to war. That's just like my understanding of it. Now, I'm totally indifferent to being right or wrong, but that's just my understanding of it. So when we talk about Japan during World War II and how had it not been for the atomic bombs, Japan would have like slaughtered us. I mean, dude, that's a big claim for us to not
I'm not
drop.
saying like Japan would have hurt the U.S. at all. I'm saying conquering Japan would have been um would have been near impossible.
Okay, so let's take that thought experiment because I like that. And once again, I'm gonna qualify it with me being totally wrong and just speaking out of my ass.
Hmm.
But let's just say at that point in time, before we declare war on Japan, before they attack Pearl Harbor,
Hmm.
Japan conquered South Korea. They conquered China.
Hmm.
Um, they have this, you know, uh, Japanese control over most of Asia.
Hmm.
Um, then they go to Russia, and Russia is fairly weak. Let's say they conquer Russia. At what point do you think that United States would just become allies with all of Europe, like we did, and it just like wipe Russia, Japan, South Korea, China, maybe Mongolia, like off the map? Is it another Ottoman Empire, or is it Japan biting off more than it could chew without proper proper defense? Just geographically speaking, to me, it seems like first off, United States is like geographically the best country. There's no country better than the United States geographically. I mean, we have oceans on either side of us, and we have pretty neutral countries on our land borders. So we're pretty much guaranteed superpower just culturally. And then we go to Europe, and you have such diverse countries in Europe, but for the most part, throughout history, we're pretty much all like seeing eye to eye about, you know, hey, these Asians are trying to take over. What do we do? Like we're all white. Let's just argue that point.
Wait,
Let's just say
you think that would?
no, I'm just saying like it's ridiculous. I know, but I'm just saying like let's just say that that's the mentality. Um, Even if all of Europe and United States like join up, what do you think geography like geographically who would win that war? If you just took United States and all of Europe against all of Asia at that point without the atomic bomb,
It would be white race extermination.
but do you think that without the atomic bomb that would be a reasonable obviously like United States we could be non-interventionist. We could say, hey, we don't care what Japan does. Do you think that Asia would conquer Europe without U.S. intervention? I mean, that's possible. But I think the U.S. would be smart enough then to not allow that. So we'd have to get involved.
I think you're forgetting
So
about how big the world is.
explain.
Look, you're talking about, like, yeah, if a huge war was to break out between U.S. allied with Europe against the rest of Asia or the rest of the world, I mean, there's no way you could hold on to any of that land. There's no way you could kill all of these people. There's no way you could hold on to any of this land. So that's like
Well,
that's why
first
it's
off,
never,
you could slice Russia like in three quarters and just knock it off the map because three
even if you
quarters of
cut
Russia is like
Russia.
inhabitable. Like not inhabitable, but like only a quarter of Russia is populated, and Mongolia, you might as well say the same thing for Mongolia. So if we're looking at landmass, yeah, landmass, like we're fucked, but that's not
So why didn't
what we're looking
Hitler
at.
succeed in Africa?
Geography, it's just
Yeah,
he's like we're not.
it's
I'm sorry,
it's
we're not we like the Europeans aren't accustomed to that terrain.
even if they were accustomed to that terrain, like holding on to that much land, like you can't do it. It's physically impossible.
Wait,
The
if
it's
holding on to that
so,
land is like, what do you mean? Because
like,
like
sure. Let's
there's
say
countries
you
established there that
like
are
you
holding on to
declare
that land.
all out total war and you kill every civilian, every living human being off of even a place like Turkey. Let's say. Let's just take one
Okay.
small example, right? You kill every single man, woman, and child, everything living and breathing on off of Turkey. What are you gonna do then? Are you gonna move your people to Turkey? And then
Well,
what? And then after Turkey,
Turkey,
well,
I feel
let's
like
just
is a bad example because like it's pretty habitable, you know.
I, it's very habitable. People live there
Like
right now. Of course, it's habitable.
you
But
could move a lot of
what
your
I'm
like.
saying, what I'm
That's a
saying is,
strategic. That's a very strategic point.
you're not
Like
listening to what I'm
I
saying
would.
right now.
Like go ahead.
Okay, Turkey. It's a great place to live. And then you
Hmm.
move part of your population to Turkey, right? And then let's say you conquer Syria, Iraq, and Iran next. Kill every man, woman, and child, every living,
Okay.
breathing thing.
These are the Nazis that conquered all of Europe. Is that what this is what you're saying, right?
This is what that all out total war looks like. But
Right, but
forget about.
but you're saying like if Hitler did this, that's what you're referring to, right?
No,
If Hitler
I'm saying
took over,
what, like, the only possible way that you can control it is by killing the native population, right? Because as long as you have a native population in that country, you can never take it over.
that's not true. It's not true at all.
Okay, well, what I'm getting
Look,
at.
look at Albania. Like with Ottoman Turks. Ottoman Turks just came in Albania and they converted to Muslim, and then they're Albanians. Like they're still Albanians. They're
And
not all
they're
brown.
they have their own government right now, right?
Albania, yeah, but they were also conquered by the Ottoman Turks in
Yeah.
Albania.
And what do they have to do
And
to be part? They were self-governing for a long time, right?
yeah, but like in other words, Ottoman Empire, like the Ottomans didn't come in and massacre every man, woman, and child just to conquer it. They just said, "Hey, these are our demands," and Albania
Because
like
the
met their
Ottomans
demands.
found a way to live with the population. The only reason why an ethnic war, if you were talking about all white people conquering all of Asia or anything like that, the only reason it wouldn't work is because you would have to kill the entire native population. There's no way that you're going to get
That's ridiculous. Wait, is that what you're saying? I think
that's
I
what
totally disagree with that
that's
because is it
originally what the
all white?
conversation was about.
No.
If US
Wait,
banded up with
what?
Europe under the pretenses that we're all white and conquered Asia, that's what the original
No, no,
conversation
no,
was about.
I I was making
Oh,
like
and we
uh,
have this recorded
hold on.
so that
That's
you can
fine.
go back and listen to
That's fine.
this.
Listen, I can make the same argument that I made an hour ago
Okay.
because to me it makes sense. If we're talking about Japan conquering South Korea, conquering China, conquering Russia because it's a small populated country,
Why would they conquer Russia?
because at the time we're talking about Japan conquering countries and like having this
I said that
quasi Axis power.
I said that Japan beat the Russian Navy and eliminated two-thirds of it. I didn't say that they conquered
Yeah,
any part of Russia.
but we already breezed over that, and that was 1905. We're talking about like World War II, pre-atomic bomb.
That's 25 years later.
No, no, no. Okay, first off, it's not 25 years later. It's more like 35 years later. But if
Around that time,
like,
I mean, World War II started.
okay, just so we're not overlapping, you're recording this,
Yeah,
and I appreciate that. But right now, the whole heart of the conversation was during World War II, Japan was a superpower, and had it not been for the atomic bombs that we like gave Japan, then Japan would be a force to be reckoned with.
gave is a
Japan,
very light
Japan,
word. More like we shoved it up their ass.
that's fine, but Japan would have been like Japan would have been a force against the United States. Then I said, well, if it was just Japan and just the United States, who do you think would have won? And then we're going back and forth to that.
Yeah.
Then we turn into, okay, I'm going to give a hypothetical. I'm going to say Japan conquers South Korea, China, and Russia, and possibly Mongolia, just because of the geography. That's like their land army invading these other, you know, bordering states. And then I said, well, United States would see that as a threat because they might conquer Europe. So United States would probably ally with most of Europe, who is mostly white. And that was kind of like a tongue-in-cheek joke, but I wasn't saying like a white genocide against everybody else. But if you want
That's
to
what
take
you
it that
made it
way,
sound
that's
like.
fine.
What are you
I
t- Let
I would say like
when you go
a
back and
tongue-in-cheek.
record this, when you go back to the recording.
Listen, you clip it, and if I made it seem like that,
Oh, I'm
then
gonna clip it.
hold on.
Oh,
I'm gonna
this is
tell
gonna
you
be
right now.
fun. I love clipping
I
shit.
I want to tell you right now. If I made it seem like I was seriously considering all whites against a brown people army,
That's what
then
you.
you
That's what
you
you
you,
said.
you yeah, but it
Why do you
wouldn't
think I
be
went into this
it
large
wouldn't.
hypothetical about why is it that we can't control an ethnically controlled territory? Because you would have to kill the entire native population because there's no way that anyone is going to be like, oh, white people are conquering us. Like
Yeah,
let's just go around and
and that's what I stopped you. And I was like, well, that's ridiculous. You don't have to be white to be like conquered, right? So obviously, okay, let's just backtrack all this. Let me just qualify this and apologize. I will tell you right now, if I made it seem like it was a white versus brown thing, that's fucking retarded and stupid. And I'm sorry if you took that seriously. Fair enough?
Yeah, now that you lost the conversation, you're just backtracking now.
You know what? You totally beat me, and clip it. I lost the argument. Okay, if that's what you want to do. But my point is that United States would have a far easier time allying with Europe because they're mostly white. So culturally, and I'm pretty sure this is like like word for word what I said. Culturally, it would make sense to be allies with somebody who you're culturally aligned with, okay, as opposed to Africa, whose geography
It's like
is
the
totally
worst
fucked.
diplomacy position ever.
It's not though,
It is.
because
You're like,
we're
oh,
literally allied
he's
with.
he's white. I'm white. Come on, bring it in, bro. Like,
Wait, okay, okay. Listen,
and
I lost. Listen, hold on,
culturally
hold on.
aligned.
I
Like
lost this
all of
whole.
Europe is like
Listen,
culturally
fine,
aligned with the United States.
awesome. I lost this whole argument, but let me ask you a question. In World War II,
Uh-huh.
when Japan was taking over South Korea, China, if United States is a pretty like we're pretty fucking like we're pretty mighty power, why wouldn't we just ally with Japan? Is there a reason in your mind why we wouldn't just ally with Japan and take over the fucking world as the Axis power? Like, why do you think that we didn't do that?
What are you
What's
talking about?
well,
How
okay,
big is the
hold on, hold
what?
on,
Ally
hold
with
on.
them over what?
Answer. You gotta answer the question.
Yeah, ally.
There's
Okay,
World War
okay.
II.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me just let
We
me
see
just
a really big superpower out there, right? You think the US is going to be like, "Oh, hey, bro, you're strong. We're strong. Let's band together and take over the world." Like that's not why would what would we even do with the world? It's not like this isn't like Roman Empire times or Ottoman Empire times where you could just have an empire that expands halfway across the world just to collect taxes from everybody. We don't give a fuck about that. We already collect taxes from everybody based on our fucking global economy. Like what would we do with control over the world? That's such a it's such a far-fetched
tangent.
idea.
I feel like you answered your question with a question. Like that's so crazy. I'm sorry. Maybe it's my conspiracy like neurons flickering, but if we're sitting there in the United States like, oh, we're some big super mighty power, what are we gonna do? Take over the world? Why would we just join with basically all of Europe and other countries as the allies versus the Axis then? What's the incentive? Is it just because Japan attacked Pearl Harbor that we just collectively said, "Hey, all of Europe, we're gonna back you, and you're gonna help us defeat Japan"? You think if it wasn't for Japan attacking Pearl Harbor, we would have just been totally neutral, like
Yeah, we
Switzerland?
wouldn't give a
And,
fuck. What?
you think? No. Serious question.
Yeah,
Do you think that was if Japan never attacked the United States, Japan was conquering West. They just kept going west and went to South Korea. They took over South Korea. They took over China. They took over Russia. Next, Kazakhstan. Next,
how
Iran.
far do you think they
Then
could
Africa.
go?
Well, that's my question to you: is at what point will the United States say, "Oh shit, like this is a problem"?
I think that the U.S. does some calculation as to like how strong can that country get. That's like part of our global diplomacy. And even if they did conquer all of China, we would just say, "Hey, that's a bigger trading partner. It's going to be easier to strike deals with." It's like we don't give a fuck
Wait,
if they conquer all
you
of
just
China or all like
but
part of
I'm
Russia,
sorry.
you know?
Did I just hear you wrong? Are you saying that they would just be stronger trade partners, like if they conquered more of the
That's why we
Asian
didn't
peninsula?
like. Why wouldn't we stop them when they were raping the fuck out of China? Like they were literally like using children as practice dummies for their samurai swords. Like we didn't give a
Why
fuck at that
why
time.
why don't we give a fuck about like Zimbabweans getting killed by Botswanans? Like
We don't give a fuck.
you
As long
you, you
if they don't have any
okay,
money, then
okay.
like what do we care?
So we
Like
don't have
sure,
we don't have a
if there's
strategic
some
interest. We don't
if
have a strategic interest in Japan killing all of the Chinese, right? So
not at
at
that
what
time, no.
at what point would Japan conquer most of Asia? Where we sit there and say, hey, we have a strategic interest in either allying with the Japanese Empire or going against it. At what point do you think that United States before World War II, we would say, "Hey, like we have we have a military, we have military strategists." At what point is it not acceptable for Japan to be taking over all of Asia and then encroaching onto Europe? At what point do you think that we would say it's too much
At that's
without attacking us? Once again, this is like no Pearl Harbor, no like, nothing threatening the United States as a country.
yeah. I think we would stop them once we evaluated their military power to be stronger than ours. Like honestly, I think that's even still, I think we would let them get to a certain size, and we would probably evaluate the situation from there based on how they're treating like local people, like how much money they're collecting, what kind of effect they're having on the global trade, what kind of are they increasing or decreasing the global GDP? Like let's say that they did conquer half of Asia, but they were super educating their people and they were real nice to them, and like they were teaching them just making the economy a lot more efficient. We
But
wouldn't do shit about that.
while conquering them, they're gonna go into other countries
And the
and
Ottoman Empire,
just teach them nice stuff, and then we're gonna like be like, that's cool
the
because they're
Ottoman
teaching them
Empire
nice
did the
stuff.
same thing.
The Ottoman Empire, for
As long
for the most part, was they coexisted with uh like different cultures surprisingly well, but they weren't going in there super nice and saying, "Hey guys,
are you saying that
this is
the
the Quran."
Ottoman Empire didn't improve any of those countries?
Okay, if that's your qualification, then we improve Libya by bombing the fuck out of it and building a church. Like, what is
What do
your
you mean? How
qualification
does
there?
that improve their economy?
It doesn't improve their economy. You're saying it improves their country.
How does it
You talk
improve
about
their country?
okay. If if you want to get down to brass tacks and say we're going to improve their economy, then here's how we do it. United States will conquer all of Africa. We're going to bomb every single country, massacre every civilian, but then we're going to have different trade routes in Africa, and that economy is going to be booming. Is that a net good for those countries because we improve their
How is their
economy?
economy going to be booming without any civilians?
Because we're going to place our own civilians there. We're going to have
What
mass
the fuck?
deportations. We're gonna send all the Mexicans into Africa. This is gonna be great.
How would that? What the fuck?
But you, like, I'm trying to show you
I
how stupid that argument is. It's like
I'm
so stupid.
my position is that if the Japanese Empire were they took over most of Asia and they were actively improving those countries to have those countries make more money for the global economy, then the US would not have a problem with a super Japanese empire. But if the Japanese Empire
That's the most ridiculous shit in the. That's probably the most.
then why
That's
didn't we stop them
that's
when they went into into China?
because when Japan conquers China, that's not a existential threat to the United States.
How
When
is that not
Ja- what
if they're creating a large empire?
yeah
If Japan held on to China and they held on to all of that land and China was defenseless at the time. China did not have a
yeah they
response
sucked. Yeah, China
to
sucked.
Japan at the time. So
Okay.
why didn't we stop Japan if we thought they were going to create an empire that could supersede the United States?
once again, this is about like a red line, right? Just like all the countries have a red line. Russia has a red line. The United States has a red line. Everything has a red line. We could sit there and say, right now, okay, I feel like the best analogy right now in current times is a Belt Road Initiative. China is expanding to Africa, and they're building up all these, all like it's the Belt Road Initiative. They're building bridges from Asia into Africa. They're building up infrastructure. The United States is not bombing Africa or going to war with China because we don't see it as an existential threat.
Wait, they're
We
building
see
a
it.
they're building
We see it.
bridges into. Is that like metaphorically they're building bridges into Africa?
No, it's called the Belt Road Initiative.
Wait, they're actually building
That's
bridges
literally what it's called.
from China.
They're building trade routes from Asia into
Oh,
Africa.
trade routes. Yeah. Okay, that's different than bridges.
I mean, like, if you want to take it like physically, like a giant bridge from China looping over all countries into Africa, you could take it that way. But what I'm saying is that it's a Belt Road Initiative. It's a belt to connect Africa into Asia, more specifically in China. So in that analogy, right now, China is starting to encroach into Africa. They're starting to invest into Africa. Now that to United States interest and to United Nations, we're all sitting there saying, "Hey, that's a fucking problem," but it's not an existential threat. So we're gonna keep our eye on it.
Well, how
Why
is
wouldn't you
it
treat it the
even a
same
threat?
way? Why wouldn't it? Okay,
Isn't it good? Isn't
this is
it
like
good that Africa is improving their economic growth with the assistance of China?
this is like the hardest point to drive for me. Maybe I'm not going about it the right way, but if we're taking our eyes back in time to Japan conquering China, and you're saying, well, why don't we just why didn't the United States get involved then when Japan was like mass murdering Chinese civilians? We know what's going on, we see it happening, but we don't see it as a direct threat. As soon as Japan would conquer China and then keep going west and west into, let's just say, Europe, well, the United States is like, hey, we're fucked because to the west of us is all Japanese empire, and to the east of us is all Japanese empire. So there has to be a point at which the United States, in let's say the 30s and 40s, says, hey, I need to have strategic interests in these these gray areas to defend ourselves, right? and and the point I was making before about like how we ally with Europe because hey, they're mostly white, ha ha ha. Really what it is Africa is meaningless to our strategic interest for the most part. Most of northern Africa is the Sinai Desert, right? It's just like desert. So why wouldn't we just like get allies in Europe to deter the Japanese Empire from moving west? And that's what we did. So
There's
I'm saying
what?
if it wasn't for atomic bombs, why you don't think that we would do the same thing?
I'm completely confused on your. I don't know what you're saying right now.
Okay, let me explain it in a different way. And once again, I'm not confident that I'm right. This is how my brain works. So I'm totally open to you showing me a different way. Okay, fair enough. If Japan in the 40s, before World War II, when Japan was rising to power, and there was the Sino-Japanese War, and Japan was mass murdering all these Chinese,
Hmm.
okay, why wouldn't, let's say, Germany, um, and England and France and Italy and everything else just become Axis powers? Now, obviously, Germany conquered France during World War II. They conquered Italy.
Kind of.
They conquered Austria. That that but
Yeah.
that okay. Hear me out. Germany invaded France. Yes.
Yeah.
Germany
Invaded. Yeah.
invaded Poland.
They didn't
Invaded
conquer. They
Austria.
didn't conquer France. They didn't conquer Italy.
Okay. Germany invaded France.
Uh-huh.
Germany invaded Poland.
Yeah.
Germany invaded Denmark.
Yeah.
Germany invaded Austria. Invaded Italy. They invaded Greece.
Yeah. They
Okay.
allied with Italy. They didn't invade it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So if you're looking at a map of Europe,
Hmm.
that's most of Europe siding with Japan. Why is it then that the United Kingdom, England, became allies with the United States if their strategic interest, like geographically, was with Europe and the Axis powers? Why do you think that England was more on the side of United States as opposed to like all of Europe and Japan? Mostly all of Europe, mostly.
Um. Self. Self. What is it? Their own self-interest. Like trying to preserve themselves as a country. Because
So,
without the
wait,
without the
hold on. If that's your argument, what do you think Germany was doing during World War II? Like, Germany does not want to be multicultural at that time, right? I mean, like that's
what?
probably the worst argument you could have during World War II. You're saying England wants to preserve its like it, its identity as a country. That's literally why Germany is
No,
invading
it
all other countries for the
what?
Aryan race.
That's not why Germany invaded all of the other countries. What?
Why did Germany invade all the other countries?
It wasn't what about the Aryan race?
Nazis?
Yeah, yeah. That's not the reason why they invaded all the other countries. They wanted to create an Uber Germany. They thought that Europe would be better suited to their control, so that they blitzkrieged all of the surrounding countries. In fact, Germany really only wanted Alsace-Lorraine after their defeat in World War One. So really, what they what they really wanted was industrial the industrial economy that they can get from Alsace-Lorraine and that Belgium area. So the crux of it was to invade Belgium and France, but they did go into Poland and all of the other countries to stop Russia from encroaching on their territory as well, right?
No, I don't think that's right.
I'm not a World War II historian, but
Neither am I. Neither am I. But
I'm pretty
the
sure they
whole
blitzkrieged.
the whole drive of Germany. If you want to argue why we went to World War II is because of all the things that happened in World War One, I agree. But
No, no, the U.S.
the
has
rise
nothing to
to
do
power.
with World War One. I'm talking about Germany's motivations
I
in
didn't say
World
anything
War
about
Two.
the United States in World War One.
Well, you said why we went to war, so I was assuming.
No, if I said that, I'm sorry. Maybe it's just like my inner German. Okay, but the reason that Germany went to war in World War II, for the most part, is we wanted and like we thought our race was superior. We thought that the German race was superior. The
That's
Aryans were
not
superior.
no. That idea only
Is that
came about.
propaganda?
Yeah, that idea only came about in the late stages of World War Two. That wasn't anything to do with the original ideology. The original ideology was vengeance for World War One, for making Germany poor, for crashing our economy, for taking
That
Alsace-Lorraine, for
that's what drove Hitler to power was the humiliation of World War One. But the reason that Germany was invading France, invading Poland, invading Austria, invading Italy was
I'm telling
because
you,
why?
it's not. It wasn't any kind. That ideology was was the to give troops the idea that we had something worth fighting for, but the original motivation for conquering those parts of France and those part that part of Belgium, the original reason was to conquer Alsace-Lorraine, and like that was a major reason that a big part that Germany lost in World War One, and the reason why we expanded eastward was to stop Russia from preemptively attacking Germany in the early stages of the war, and that's why we
What?
invaded Russia in like 1942, was because they hated Russia so much at that time that they wanted to clip them early. You know, they wanted to
Why would Russia be invading Germany before World War Two?
because they were well. I think what I read at the time was that Russia was putting troops and artillery on the border um, during that time. So Germany didn't want to put all of its forces westward when Russia could just come from behind them and crush it early on. So they had to expand in both directions, splitting up their forces, you know?
So if that was the case, why wouldn't Germany and all these surrounding countries just ally with the United States and say, "Hey, it's United States and all of Europe against Asia"?
I I don't know what you
Strategically,
mean.
what? Okay, it's I don't know how else to ask it. If at that time Japan was conquering China and conquering Russia, or I'm sorry, invading Russia,
They weren't
then
invading Russia
what
either.
weren't you saying that Russia was afraid of Japanese invasion
No, I'm saying
because they were so
Japan's
powerful?
navy during World War II was powerful enough to sink two-thirds of the Russian fleet, and the Russian fleet at the time was one of the world's most powerful. So, like, if you take a fledgling country that somehow defies the odds and sinks two-thirds of their opponent's navy, that's a lot. That shows a lot of growth, you know?
I just don't know. Like, listen, I'm coming from a place where I don't understand if during World War II you have the Axis powers, which is most of Europe and Japan were the Axis powers, the United States and England and other countries were the Allies. Why wouldn't Germany, instead of invading uh, Poland because of the fear of Russia, why wouldn't Germany just sign a pact with the United States? Did they make the attempt to become allies?
Yeah,
Because I don't
I think
think they
during
did.
before World War II, yeah, we had a few Nazi rallies in the United States.
No, 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 not Nazi rallies. I'm saying did Germany proper
Yes,
send
they
a
did try.
treaty with the United States?
Yes, they did try to.
And what happened?
I don't know. Obviously, we rejected them. But I would say if it wasn't for our alliances with all of those other countries, if it was just Germany as a rogue state conquering other rogue states, I guarantee the US wouldn't have gotten involved. We would have let Germany eat up all of those other countries because you know what? It's easier dealing with one large country than 50 other smaller countries. We don't give a fuck about anything else. It doesn't matter if
Let's
they're white,
see.
black, you know, whatever fucking religion they are, as long as they're playing by our rules and making us money, like what do we have to care about? We didn't get involved in World War II for any kind of ideological reasons. Otherwise, we would have gotten involved much earlier, you know? Why would we let Germany get so powerful even when we knew, like, we had spies in that area? We had intelligence that was saying that Germany was building up all their forces and they were becoming a major uh, industrial economy. We didn't get involved in then. because we want to see how things played out, you know? That's just the nature of countries. And like why didn't all those countries band together to conquer the rest of the world? Because every one of these countries has their own identity. That identity is what drives that country. And if you ally with someone way bigger than you and create an empire, you lose your identity. In 100 years, you won't be a country anymore. Your people won't be safe anymore, you know?
Oh man, I'm like so interested to figure out because I remember the United States was very hostile towards Nazi rhetoric in the 30s.
No, they weren't.
Yeah,
We were holding
of course
Nazi
they were.
rallies over here. What?
Oh
No.
my god. Oh my god.
We were
You're
almost allied with Germany. We
can
were
you
like,
link? Listen, I'll give you. Listen, I have to take a piss.
okay,
Okay, give me 5 minutes. But I want you to find where a majority of Americans were sympathetic towards the Nazis or the Nazi Party in the 30s. Okay, so after the
okay.
Great Depression,
Oh, I'm on
at,
Wiki.
at,
I'm on Wikipedia. Germany, United States relations.
okay, okay. I want you to link me where because there was Nazi rallies in the United States, that meant that if that was the case, then we should be fighting for who was it, Eisenhower or I'm sorry, Roosevelt, to just ally with Germany. If majority of Americans were sympathetic towards the Nazi,
Oh, there we go.
like uprising.
The 1920s right here.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Did you find something, or you just found the 1920s? Like I
No,
don't know.
this is like the 1920s. Economic and
Yeah.
diplomatic
Yeah.
relations were positive during the 1920s.
Yeah. Of course, because we just came
Uh,
off the Great Depression.
because Wall Street sought a prosperous and stable Europe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, but Europe is not Nazi Germany.
but in like our frame of mind
In the
as
twenties,
a
in the
country,
twenties and thirties, in the twenties
if
and thirties,
if
this is not Nazi regime, fucking Nazi flags in all of Europe. This is the twenties and thirties. This is like the Austria-Hungarian, like Austria-Hungarian, how like they were still allies. This is so long ago. All right, I'm gonna take a piss. I'll be back in like 5-10 minutes.
Yo, yo.
Hmm. Uh-huh. All right. So I was dead wrong. Dead wrong about that.
Yep.
Yep.
I heard you say you were wrong about what?
America's alliance with Germany during World War II.
Okay.
Huh.
I'll take W. I'll take the giant L from the whole conversation, but I'll take that little W.
Well, 1920s. It was they didn't feel that strongly about Germany, but it looks like during the 1940s after the Great Depression, there was a large anti-American sentiment from Germany, and then they declared war on us. So that's when we got involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. All right. Well, I'll take the giant L. I'll say if next time we sit there and say we want to have a World War II what if conversation, I'll be a little bit more prepared. But I do really enjoy World War II history, and there's a little bit of remnants still left in my head about it. Uh, that was one of them. So
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't think that us aligning with a large swath of other countries would even work out. A lot of these other countries are working in their own self-interest, so and how big the world is to even conquer half of these countries is untenable. I don't even know how the fuck Germany did it back then. I don't even think that they got that far with their whole Africa campaign.
no, Germany in World War II was they had a big presence in Africa.
Yeah, but it was mostly shit countries, without much pushback. And in fact, a lot of the countries that were invading already liked Nazis. Like even to today, if you look at the Palestinian sentiment, I would say a lot of them agreed with Nazi ideology, getting rid of the Jews and all that.
You know what's funny, man? Like might be kind of unrelated to the Palestinian sentiment, but I remember working with a couple people years ago, and one of the guys I work with, his name was Murad, and he's Jordanian, and he was totally on board with Hitler. Like he was like, "Oh, Hitler was great," and I was like, "Wait, really?" And this is like 2010. No, 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 no. Let's see. Uh, Maybe 2016, 2015. He was like, "Oh yeah, Hitler was like great." I was like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." He's like the Jews, and he was like Israel because Jordanians and Israelis are like not friendly at all. So naturally, like they're just siding with the people who hate Israelis. But he was telling me he was like, "Oh yeah, Hitler was great, right?" He's like, "Oh, you're German? Yeah, Hitler was great." And I was like, "That's crazy that somebody would just like so unapologetically be like pro Hitler in
Yeah.
like 2015." It was like the weirdest thing. But I mean, it's there, you know.
Yeah, but people like that have, like, they have no education. They they have no idea about, like, it's like they think it was like so like such a grand idea, you know?
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. It's I feel like we're just in a perpetual state of that mentality where it's like we're better than them, no matter what country it is, no matter what culture it is, no matter what religion it is. It's just like we're better than you, you know. And it's a very caveman like mentality that we still have, you know. Hold on one second. I'll be right back.
Right.
All right, I'm back. Do you wanna get away from the debates and play a couple games or what?
Yeah. Yeah, what do you want to play?
Oh, it's up to you, man. Play some Valorant, play some Counter Strike. What do you want to do?
Let's try some Counter-Strike.
Let's try some Counter Strike. All right. I feel like CS:GO, my computer ran a lot smoother than CS2, and I tried like lowering everything and deleting all the cache and everything else, but still, I feel like if I'm in the round, once I'm in like the second round, it'll run smooth. But once at a blue moon, like if I'm one on one with somebody else, it'll just stutter for a split second, and it drives me insane.
Hmm,
I
that's
feel like I
weird.
need more RAM.
Yeah, maybe. Check your RAM type also. Oh, there's an update for it. 6.1 gigabytes.
Oh, I'm ready whenever you are. But let me say goodnight to the kids while you're updating.
All right.
I'll be back. Okay. PS5 work?